Welcome everyone to the debut episode of Diving In with Josh. I am your host Josh, and this is the wrestling podcast not about wrestling, but about pro wrestling fans' lives outside of the wonderful weird world of wrestling. Now, for those of you who don't really know what Diving In is, it's basically just, like I said, it is about pro wrestling fans' lives, their interests, their dislikes, their views on society, everything else in between. No topic is really off limits for Diving In with Josh. And, you know, I had this weird idea. I've had this idea about Diving In for the last couple of months, and I just didn't know how to approach this. I didn't know how to attack this. I really didn't know if this was something that I was even capable of producing, really. I've been through so many different ideas and ways of what I wanted to do. If I wanted to just stick with one topic, I'm like, no, I want to do something that's kind of free-flowing. You can kind of talk about anything on, and no judgment, just an open, safe spot, I guess. I think the original idea kind of formed with this because, you know, as you know me from Wrestling Reverb, I talk a lot of wrestling. I love it. It is what I love more than anything else. But it's just more so that I've just wanted to talk about a few other things. And, you know, you put a few posts out on social media about a few other things, and you start to notice within the wrestling community, people do care about other things. And I don't think a lot of people think about that sometimes. And I guess I just did, and I just wanted more out of this. So, you know, scrambling my brain, what Diving In is going to be, we'll see. It's going to be a journey for you guys as much as it is for me, because it's about it's different guests. It's just going to be just a free-flowing kind of show, and that's what I want from Diving In. And when I was going through, you know, all the different guests that I want to have on, there's so many people I want to have on. There's so many people that, you know, since announcing Diving In a few weeks ago, have actually opened up to me and say, hey, I might want to come on. And that's what I want from this show. I want this show to be as open to anybody as possible. And when I was going through who I wanted first, I knew who I wanted first pretty much from the time that I announced Diving In. It was just a matter of sorting it out. And this person I knew was going to be the perfect kind of stamp on what Diving In will be. And today I have sitting with me, graciously waiting to talk, none other than my main man, Wilfred. How you doing, Wilf?
You've got to be joking me!
I mean, solid attempt.
I've been waiting for 3 minutes to say that, because the Iconics are iconic, and I am Wilfred. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
No problem. Like I said, I knew that I wanted someone that was just going to, you know, set the tone for what this show is going to be about, because I've said many times that this show's, I'm not going to be really afraid to talk about anything. I'm not afraid to talk about the stuff that is deemed, quote-unquote, uncomfortable or just awkward to talk about. And, well, for those of, you know, in the wrestling community that don't know who you are and what you do, give a little brief rundown of who you are and what you exactly do.
I am a very brash and ambitious and really Wild West kind of voice on the internet. Sometimes I make lots of sense. Sometimes I make really good tweets. And sometimes I make really bad tweets. So I am just a human trying to navigate and trying to make watching wrestling actually, a supplemental career. I am not that brash knowing that, being a podcaster or internet person is going to make me famous. I just think that I can go pretty far with my ideas and opinions. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm just very outspoken, and I'm very grateful for everything. And yeah, I'm just a regular wrestling fan like anybody else. I just have lots more to say, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Yeah, and that's exactly the reason why Wilf is my first guest here on Diving In. And today is one of those, to set the tone for what this show is going to be. It's not always going to be a topic of, you know, it's maybe a little, not a downer, just a little bit uncomfortable. There's going to be some other stuff that's happening on Diving In, but to kick things off on Diving In, today we're going to talk about, has the world become too sensitive in 2019? That is something that has been on my brain for quite a little while, longer than I've really intended it to stay on my brain. And was this the first kind of topic that I thought about for this show? Probably not. But it is just taken over my brain in a sense of, I need to talk about this now, and this is the platform to do it on. There's the difference between this show and Wrestling Reverb, if you're a fan of Wrestling Reverb, is that, listen, Wrestling Reverb has a lane to stick in. It is wrestling, and that is what it's going to stay. This show isn't. I can, for anyone that has, I'm pretty known around the wrestling community to be fairly nice to people, but for anyone that has told me in the past that I have chatted with, I'm not going to name names or anything like that, that have told me to stay in my lane, well, just wait and see what this show is going to be about, because it's definitely not in the lane of wrestling, and there is more to life. But this is what I'm talking about in the sense of sensitivity and easily offended and the PC culture that we seem to live in today. Wilf, when I say, is the world too sensitive in 2019, what kind of comes to your brain? Because it does seem like the world is in a very sensitive place more than ever.
So my first thought is that it's okay that we're more self-aware when it comes to being sensitive. And I'm really fortunate that people are discussing their mental health more and more and more. But personally, it's been a crutch for me. So I have been in the gutter for the last 20 years after my mom passed when I was 13. And the fact that I can talk about that with other people and talk about depression with some people is it's a good thing. So it's good to be sensitive. But we're being hypersensitive. We're being uber sensitive to the max. And if a leaf falls down from the tree and lands on your phone, sometimes we act like it's World War III. What the fuck? People go crazy. And the most minor things, the minor infractions are causing us to be hypersensitive. So my first thought is that it's a good thing that we're more self-aware, but it's hypersensitivity. It's extreme. It really is. Extreme. And we are looking down in our phones. We are complicit. We are programmed socially to do as we're told and do as we are told and be complicit. So you don't have to take those orders. You are acknowledging those orders of being programmable. And, oh my God, I can never leave Facebook. Oh my God, I can never leave Twitter. And that's not true. Because you can do those things. Yeah. But we're programmed. Oh, but my family. Well, if they're family, they'll text you. They'll call you. They'll email you. There are so many ways to contact. So I think some people are scared to evaluate who's in their family, who's not, because we're hypersensitive with so many things. And we're so easily programmable as humans right now with phones and the wealth of information, and that we cannot see the car that's driving past us because we are so programmed looking down. And when I started working, when I was 18 or 19, cell phones were not, they were very brick-like and foldable, and, there was a lot of innovation back then. And Motorola Razr, was the worst phone ever. But I remember sitting in break rooms and I would see people talking and chatting. And now you sit in break rooms and everybody's head is down. Like, it's frightening. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
But then if somebody looks at you when you're not looking at your phone, it's like, why is this guy looking at me? Because I'm just looking around.
It's true.
I'm just looking at
it's very true because
it's
we're a different age, Wilf. Like, it's in terms of I've grown up with a phone basically since I was 10 years old. Like, it's just what the world is, and when you compare it to being hypersensitive, it is very weird that you bring that up, because in the terms of, at a break room at work, everyone is on their phones, and it's like, if someone is looking at you, it's almost like you're seeing an alien. Like, why are you associating with me? Like this, like, just text me. You know what I mean? Like, it is really weird. And do you think that kind of, in the way of how we're strapped to our phones just 24/7, do you think that is kind of accommodating how we are hypersensitive with absolutely everything? Do you think that makes a difference, or do you think the world would have still become hypersensitive even if we weren't glued to our phones?
I think it's a really big factor. Personally, I think that technology has evolved far quicker than anybody could have imagined. When I was 17, I had, or about 15 to 17, I would spend about 40 minutes downloading one song illegally. And now you have instant streaming for everything. So the accessibility, I think, is a major factor in the hypersensitivity. I think it's a major factor because we as humans have not been able to adapt. We've adapted to the technology easily because it's so user-friendly, but it's too user-friendly that we are, with all the social media at our fingertips, social media has made us less sociable. And when are we going to realize that? I mean, we have crazy people who are, and they're crazy. So fuck what you think about the word crazy. They're crazy people who are taking advantage of your complicity, and they are going into synagogues or going into places of public and blowing themselves up and killing people because you're not paying attention. And it's like, when are we going to fucking open our eyes?
Yeah.
It's terrifying to me.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. You talk about terrifying and that kind of, that crazy nature that some people have in this day and age. Are you personally easily offended, or are you a person that can kind of just take what they're saying in context? Or are you an easily offended person?
I'm easily emotional. I'm okay. So my dad's Puerto Rican, and my mom is American. So Puerto Ricans are very fiery, very, very. We're Latinos, so we're very fiery. We always have a sharp tongue. We are going to throw our opinions out whether you like it or not. And inside of our house and inside of a Puerto Rican's home, we're gonna cry all night. Like, we're big and bold outside, and we're just big babies inside, and that's just how we are. And so it's not that I'm offended really by a lot of things. I'm more personally attacked. Like, we are just very emotional, a very emotional kind. So I get very emotional over everything, and that's positive or negative. So if I can harness that, which is a lifetime struggle for most people, to try to harness that energy into something positive, then we can take over the world, people like us. And I am fresh off of watching the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez documentary on Netflix. So I'm very passionate right now. And it's very, very amazing to see somebody like her from nothing, being a waitress and then trying to take over the world, because who else is going to? And so that's the thing. Like, personally, I get overly emotional on things.
Yep.
But if I can harness that energy, then I can be really fucking good at something. But it's a challenge. It's a lifelong challenge.
Yeah, because I mean, I wouldn't say I'm a person that is easily offended. You can kind of say whatever you want, and I am not a person that will be like, oh, but you can't say, like, I don't really care in the sense of that. I am similar to you. I can be fairly emotional all the time. I kind of am a bit of an overreactor to things. That's just me personally. I wouldn't say it's like something that has just harnessed me all my life, but I do overreact. I am fairly over emotional with things. I'm a crier. I always have been, and I just cry at everything. But I mean, easily offended, I don't think I am, but then the world that we live in today, even me, who is not easily offended, looks at something and go, okay, everyone is offended by this. I almost have to be on that train of being offended just to not be taken the wrong way, because it's easily, I mean, you make a joke and people take things the wrong way, more so than ever, it seems, you know, in this time. But do you feel like, maybe not you personally, but what you see from the outside, especially, I mean, it's everywhere, but especially in the entertainment industry, do you feel like people are walking on eggshells?
Well, yeah, we are. Everybody is. But this is the really interesting dilemma that we have in our society right now, especially here in the Western world, where we have somebody who is in charge, who is, and trust me, you know, I don't know how the perspective is from Australia or Europe about Trump, but trust me, we fucking hate him. We fucking hate him.
We know.
And just because he's in the position that he is does not mean that we want him there or we decided that. As you can see, it's very likely an invalid presidency. And that doesn't change anybody's ideas when they're in the break room still looking down. I mean, it's terrifying that things can happen this way. And I was just thinking about this. Is this a generational conversation that is always had? Or is this a real life moment, a life decision in our timeline as a society that we should be worried about? And when are we going to know? What is a better time than now to be concerned? So it's scary how complicit we are with everything. And of course we are walking on eggshells. But the fact that everybody else is walking on eggshells and people in power like Donald Trump can say that he can go grab a pussy or kill somebody out in the street and he won't get caught is what the fuck? What kind of ass backwards system are we living in? And to see some of this happen in Europe or in New Zealand like we saw is with these attacks, it's like, what the fuck? It's terrifying. Yeah. And I have to question, like, is this just a generational conversation that every generation has? So am I being over analyzing towards this, or is this really a measure of concern? And that's our generation's dilemma, I think, is we're just trying to figure it out and we need help.
Honestly, yeah, because just to answer your previous question from before, at least I can speak on my views. Being in this country, being in Australia, we know all about Donald Trump. We know all about how he, what he says and what he does. And from the outside, now this is where it I have no problem talking about this kind of stuff. But from the outside, it's just like that is in the sense of how the country is, being presented to the rest of the world. Donald Trump is your leader. He is your president. And it gives the states a bad rep in the sense of we refer to the states, at least in this country, as that guy runs that country. That country is just going in all weird different places. Because I don't know if you know this, Wilf, but when you brought up, like, how there's attacks in, like, with the horrible attacks that happen in New Zealand and the attacks that have happened in Europe and all the attacks that have happened in the US over the last, year, 2 years, 3 years, however many years this has been really going on now, we look at that from this country as we have very different laws to you guys in the sense of guns and whatever it may be. And it's not that I'm attacking the states or attacking you guys or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying at all. Again, see me walking on eggshells here and having to clarify myself.
Yeah, I know.
But we have very different laws to you guys, and when it comes to attacks, we don't really have that too much in this country, knock on wood, because of our laws and stuff like that. And it is a sense of, when it comes to hypersensitivity, it seems like the way the country is run is that they just stick to the Second Amendment, I believe it's called. I could be wrong. But they just stick to that, and they're so hypersensitive on that Trump's not going to change that law, and I think there'd be an outrage if that law was changed. I don't know your view on that, and again, this is completely not judgmental, but how do you think it looks from the outside of the States, outside of America, when we look in on your kind of deal that's going on with Trump and stuff like that?
Well, I watch a lot of television from outside of the United States because you can't get a fair perspective of the news here. It's just impossible. So I look outside of the States for news, for my entertainment, for my viewing of everything, essentially. Yeah. So I watch... I have a better grasp of what the world sees of the United States. And while yeah, I agree with you on a lot of these points, imagine how most of us feel who, the popular vote did not go his way. And that right there is a fundamental issue in our system. But trying to stay away from politics a little bit. Yeah. I mean, I know I brought it up, obviously, so I have to die by the sword. But still, it's spreading. And I have to bring up Trump because it's spreading. That is our image, and I couldn't feel more sick about that. It is so disgusting. And I think it contributes. I mean, I think there's a long line of factors that have got us to this point as an entire world society. But we are definitely contributing the most, I think, to fucking it all up. And I feel terrible for the rest of us, for the rest of the world. Yeah. But I do think it's not entirely one person's fault. That would be naive.
Of course not.
It's definitely a lot of our lawmakers who are very submissive towards Trump, oddly. And I'm sure are going to get a payoff in the future. 5 years later, when it all cools down, you're going to get a nice big fat check. But I think it's a very long line of things, and you can't talk about sensitivity unless you actually bring up 9/11, because it was a generational shift to genuinely just frighten everybody. And it was a worldwide situation. Everybody felt that.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody remembers that moment. It was, I believe, really changed the course of how we perceived each other and our neighbors. And that still lives on. It still lives on. Yeah. And the fact that it was done... the events afterwards were done in haste, invading a country that actually did not participate in it. And the fact that we as a nation, the United States, have not really come to terms with that realization that we fucked up is it's a scar on our timeline. It's a scar. But as a stubborn American, we are very stubborn and we are very headstrong. That's why we left the island in the first place, to go conquer our own land. So it's a scar. And when our backs are pushed against the wall, we can do some really amazing things. So, but yeah, we're on eggshells, and it's happened very quickly over the last 15 to 20 years that I think we're all having a very challenging time trying to conceive or try to figure out what is happening. Like I said, we're sensitive, which is great. It's fantastic that we're all self-aware about our issues, but we are under a veil of ignorance. We have a veil, we're covered, we're looking at one thing all the time and our interest only, and we're not looking at the people sitting right next to us. And it's just so peculiar, which is a big reason I've gone back to school, to try to learn more about this and try to understand psychology and a lot of things, because, I say plenty of dumb things online.
Oh, me too.
And and things can be perceived the wrong way. But if you don't speak honestly and you just stay in your circle or stay in your lane, you're never going to learn from people around you. You're just going to hear what you want to hear. And I was in circles in this podcasting wrestling bullshit, and it's almost as if you don't follow that route, then you're wrong.
Yeah.
And I said, fuck that. So, yeah. I should stop there.
Listen, when we talk about walking on eggshells and how the world perceives, I feel like as a society as a whole, this isn't for every individual person, but just as society as a whole, we're almost afraid of speaking our truth because we're afraid of what the world will perceive it as. Especially in a world where it seems like everything is online. It seems like everything is under a microscope almost. Everything is monitored. Everything you do. It is just the culture that we live in. Like, not everyone does this like I do, but even I do this. I'm guilty of this. I'm on Snapchat all the time. Everyone's got to know what I'm doing. I'm on Twitter all the time. I'm on Facebook all the time. I'm on whatever it may be. And, generations before me are obviously, not like that. I have a 10-year-old little brother, and he's actually 9, I should say, and he already has a phone. But that's everyone at his age now. They have a phone. They have everything so accessible to them. He's had an iPad since he was 6 years old. He was on YouTube, and the world is literally at his fingertips. And you look at my generation being my age, and even the generation before me, Wilf, you could probably say this as well, is that we were kind of you guys were kind of the catalyst to start this kind of technology phase, and then we just kind of took it and ran with it. And now the next generation that I'm looking at is like, it kind of frightens me even more, because if I'm this into it, imagine what the kids are like, younger than me and younger and younger. And it's just, the world is, like you said at the beginning of the show, the world is evolving at a pace where I don't think the human race is ready. And we're not even sure what's going on in front of us. It's just rapidly going at this fast pace. And it kind of leads me into talking about a PC culture. How do you think the world got so PC? Because it's not just from a phone. It just seems like, in regards to everything from the way we talk, the way we joke, the way we look at race and gender, and just everything in the world seems to be so politically correct that you can't go left because everybody's going right.
So if I say Allah Akbar, people are going to freak the fuck out.
Yeah.
Even though I'm saying God is great.
Yeah.
In a different language.
Yeah.
When has it been so terrible that you can't speak another language to somebody? And just simple things like that if you're scared to hear a different language, I don't even know what to say to you, man. Like,
I agree.
If another language offends you, if a hibab scares you, come on. and that's part of this very nationalistic ideology that has been spreading, because we have freedom of speech, which is great, but that does not mean that they have freedom from consequences. And we are really online being very anonymous with no repercussions of anything we say. And when we live in a world like that, it's kind of like the Wild West. We can say what we want, do what we want, and we can go onto message boards or Twitter and have different aliases and do it all from an air-conditioned room in the first world. It's and it's not just an American or Western thing. I think it's really a worldwide epidemic that we have a lot of different things going on in our society over the past 20 to 30 years that is happening so quickly. It's kind of like when there's a new prescription medicine on the market. It may be a cure or something that's going to help out, so they rush it out without any testing. Let's just get it out. Let's get it out. And that's kind of like technology and social media. We got it out there really quickly and everybody's on it, but what are the long term? There is no studies about long-term effects of social media, having a phone, looking at this LED screen all day and all night. There are a lot of long-term lasting effects that we have not even considered because it's not even been around that long.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of things that we are learning on the fly that could be doing some great harm to us as a society. So it's and it's happening all at the same time as these nationalistic ideas where we're being bolder and braver, because who's holding who accountable anymore? It seems like anybody can do anything. If you can live stream shooting people in a church, what the fuck, man? I mean, and these platforms are not able to decipher that quickly. Not able to decipher something that aggressive, yet we have to verify what a fucking palm tree looks like when we're putting a post on Reddit.
Yeah.
What the fuck? It's one way for this thing and another for the other. And I even wrote on my sociology class last semester about censorship on social media and how these platforms definitely need to have a better grasp of it because it's gotten out of hand. So
it has. And, you know, coming from my background is, listen, I've even copped people just in life when I tell them I'm not a religious person and I'm not one to, you know, I'm not being like, oh my God, you can't. I am very much a believer in freedom of religion, freedom of speech, all of that stuff. But even I have come across people when I'm asked, I'm not even telling them, when I'm asked, oh, hey, are you religious? And I say no, people are like, how could you not be blah, 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 blah. And that is the kind of, I guess it's just kind of the world we live in is almost, to one sense, we're uncensored and we're allowed to say and do whatever we want. And then on the other side of the coin, it's almost like we have to do whatever the person we are talking to wants, because you just can't have... It almost seems like we have a lot of freedom and then we don't have any, if you understand what I'm kind of trying to say. But have you... Well, you probably have. I know I have. Have you had run-ins with people where they're just too offended by absolutely anything you say? Like, they're just literally a walking example of walking on eggshells.
I mean, everybody on Twitter, basically.
Yeah.
Everybody on social media. Oddly enough, I mean, it's a fantastic platform that I've built my tiny brands upon, but it's also a field of landmines. And, you know, there are those out there who say what they want and such, but it's a difficult spot. I mean, social media is the first place I think of when you ask me that. And it's very, very, it's just very odd that it can be so open to free speech, and also we have self-regulated our own thoughts and our own opinions, and we have self-regulated and self-censored our own ideas before we even post them. And that's how complicit we are to technology and power above us, that we are subjects to that fear. And that's why I brought up 9/11 earlier. We are submissive to fear mongering. Yep. We obey, we listen to it. And I don't know what's going to make it better. I'm hoping that the next generation says, "You've got to be joking me," you know? Like, what the fuck are you going? And that's the thing. I saw online a really popular tweet, which is a dumb sentence to say, that how can the generation that grew up on South Park be so sensitive? And
yeah, no joke.
But that's the thing. That's a false blanket. That's a blanket statement that's inaccurate, because I grew up watching South Park, and South Park was on before 9/11 happened. And it was very bold. It was very vulgar. And I watched it when I was too young to be watching it. And if anything, it made us more thick-headed. It made us more stronger when it came to really bold ideas. So I would not credit something like all those TV shows and stuff. You're giving media too much power already. And you're giving it even more when you make blanket statements like this that have 900 retweets, and now it's fact in your mind.
True.
Well, it's not fact. It's not entirely fact. So the fact that we are even discussing what fact is, and sources, and all this nonsense that's part of the wrestling Twitter genre is laughable to me, because you're questioning what fact is. What? I mean, that's a fundamental issue, what is true or not true. And the fact that we're debating this is archaic of us. So
yeah, it's just, I guess, again, another example of the world we live in now is just, if it's on a Twitter page, if it's on a Facebook page, oh, it's true. If it's got some traction, it's fact. It's not fiction. When we kind of talk about the easily offended, the hypersensitive, you look at the entertainment industry in terms of, you talk about South Park in, the 90s and how it evolved, and it was very vulgar and very brash. But do you think in a way that this hypersensitivity, you look at TV shows now, on like HBO and stuff like that, it seems like they've almost used the hypersensitivity and the easily offended as a way to make television, because it seems like they'll say anything on a television show now, but the world is almost too scared to say some of that stuff on a television show or in a movie. Do you feel that way, or do you feel like even the entertainment industry has become very PC?
It's funny to use the word PC, because I'm thinking of an exact, really trying to walk on eggshells here, which is the whole reason for the discussion. But I had this conversation in a way with somebody who is a known person in the wrestling Twitter sphere. And I said, well, it's just I have to straddle the PC line. And I interpreted this as I was being shot down like, no, that doesn't exist. And I did not agree with that. And this is now the last time that I've spoken to that person, because we can't even disagree and still come to the table. We have to disagree and then never talk again.
Yeah.
And because I don't agree with something that the fact that a PC line or a politically correct view on things is even real or not, and I can't even have that discussion with you, and it's just finalized, it's very dogmatic of them, then that's troubling. Because if it's happening in our very small genre of wrestling Twitter, then that's just trickled down so far that it's infiltrated us in this tiny subgenre of social media. So yeah, of course we're PC. Of course everybody is. And the fact that we are assuming that the person in front of us or the person receiving our Twitter message is going to be PC, and we're self-censoring it before we even write anything.
Yep.
Just shows us how everybody is perfectly complicit in their role, and we are so frightened to step out of line. And I'm guilty of it too. I'm guilty of saying I don't say some things online. Sometimes I do say something online, and even our colleagues will say, I didn't add anything to that particular message because I didn't want to. Well,
yep,
we're all guilty of that, you know. Why wouldn't you jump in that conversation? Why wouldn't you say something that you really wanted to say? And these are people that we talk to, and you know. It's kind of odd. Like, yes, you may feel like you're older, you're above it, but honestly, you're just complicit, and you're afraid to speak for yourself.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the amount of times that I've gone to type something and just gone, no, backspace, delete that. Just because there is a level, like you said, of fear of how it's going to be perceived. Because, again, we're talking through a screen. There's no expression, there's no emotion in the way, or there's no context in the way. It's just literally what's written in front of you, what's posted in front of you, and it's how you interpret it in any way, shape, or form. There really isn't a way to interpret it. There's no way to put it in the context of things. Anyone can take it in any direction that they want to take it. So there is many times where I've done it. I've gone to type a message, gone to post a tweet, and just deleted it and been like, I'm not going to put that on the internet. There has to be a very fine line between, you know, just being completely offensive and saying something in context, but it's a hard line to manage.
There's something else that I want to add to that is that
sure.
I think we've lost touch of what atonement means. And when you see people apologize or say, look, I'm sorry, and we don't give that the space that it deserves, and we question their sincerity.
Yeah.
I think that we should have a better sense of atonement and accepting somebody's apologies for things. I think about was it David, the comedian David Hart, or is it Kevin Hart?
Kevin Hart,
who had some meaningless tweet 8 years ago, and the academies didn't want him to host, or you know,
that was a big thing.
It was such nonsense, man.
If you actually read the tweet for what it is, it doesn't really say too much. It's just used a few words that, you know, everyone's like, oh my God, you can't say that, even if it's something from 10 years ago.
And that's the thing. We're taking things out of context. And then when somebody says sorry, it's not good enough. Why is it not good enough when somebody says sorry or apologizes? That's, I think, a troubling situation that we have in our society globally, that we are good enough. Saying sorry is not good enough. So what is?
Yeah, it is weird because, you know, looking at that situation with Kevin Hart, it's people were like, this, the sorry isn't sincere. He's only saying it because he's got caught. It's like, well, he didn't even remember the tweet that he posted or whatever it was that he posted. He literally had forgotten about it, and it was taken and just ran with. He didn't end up hosting the Oscars. I don't believe they had a host that year. I think it was just a hostless Oscars. But it is just stupid because, listen, they had no problem with Kevin Hart beforehand, and he owned up. He said, listen, I said the wrong thing. I'm sorry. And it wasn't good enough for anybody. And I look at that kind of stuff is that if that was me in a situation of just, I said something in my workplace or I said something to my friends and they were like, hey, we had, blah, blah, blah. And I apologized. For the most part, you would be accepted. Because it's on such a grand scale and you have everybody looking at you, it's just taken way, way further than it really, in my opinion, ever should have been taken. He went from not hosting to hosting again to not hosting. And I just think, he was on talk shows. I remember watching an interview with Ellen DeGeneres and saying, listen, it was taken out of context and you apologize. But nobody was willing to listen to his apology. They were just like, you fucked up and we don't want anything to do with you anymore. Take him off the Oscars. And it's like, that is just an example of what we live in. I mean, we deal with it on a much, 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 much smaller scale. And, I've never had anything that I've posted where people have taken it out of, well, maybe they have, but it is just a really weird world. And to kind of like, as we're kind of, gearing towards the end of this kind of subject, but what do you think in 10 years from now it's just going to continue to get worse? Do you think it's going to get better? What do you say to people like my 9-year-old brother that, when he's 20, 30, 40, what is the world that he's going to be living in? Because I don't know if it's going to be a question you can even answer.
Well, I'm not worried about him. I'll tell you that. I'm not worried about the next generation because I think that this is a very rich opportunity for the next generation to see the failings of our generation and the generations of past.
Yeah.
The old, rich, white guys who run our countries, they're aging. And I think youth is going to be in a better shape. I think they're going to have a better grasp of things. I believe that he's going to be just fine. Your little brother's just going to be fine. Honestly, I do. I think that at the end of the day, I'm not banking on everything being perfect or being okay, but I think he's going to be better off when some of these people shake out. And because we do have a very vibrant youth and a very intelligent and very smart youthful generation coming up. And I'm not scared really about the world society in the upcoming 10 to 20 years. I'm just kind of concerned about this. How is this ugly part in at least the U.S. history going to end? Because it's a chapter that nobody wants to go back and read. But about the atonement thing, I want to say real quickly is it seems like past generations were not easily they didn't have an agenda easily available to them.
Yeah.
And it seems that with this strong entitlement that we have the social media, we have all the information we ever need at our fingertips. We're so entitled that we also bring an agenda to every situation. We have our own personal thing that we need to get across rather than just saying, okay, well, I don't agree with that. But no, we have to press our agenda, which is also a scary thing that I have to forward what my thoughts and ideas are. And if you don't agree with them, then I can't talk to you. And it's a strange time in society. And I don't think it'll last, but it really sucks right now.
Yeah. I mean, it does seem like we're in a pretty, I don't know. I just look at the world really weirdly. And it's
very contentious, very I win, you lose mindset that a lot of people have right now.
It is. That is really one really right way to look at it is there's no middle ground. There is no middle gray area, it seems. I don't know. That's just from my vantage point, but I just look at the people around me and I just I don't know. I just get a little bit. I wouldn't say I look at the world like badly. I don't look at it like Dippy Downer. But I mean, there's certainly aspects of the world that I look at and I'm just like, oh man, like that's just not fun. I try to look at it. I mean, I've had my own issues with struggles with depression and stuff like that. And, you can hear in the way I just talk, and related to wrestling, I try to look at things a little bit more fun. And I don't really try to suck the life out of everything, which, I mean, there's a lot of people that do that. And I don't know, just as a world as a whole, it just seems like, you look at the news and you look at how the news is presented, it's like there's always something wrong going on. Whether someone's dying or there's some kind of attack or there's, whether it's trust me, it's not just the US, any form of politics is just a Dippy Downer subject. Australia, hey, any Australians listening to this right now, please make sure you go and vote in 2 weeks' time, because make your vote count, because we look at the other parts of the world, and this country is very much, oh, look at that, that's all bad. But, voting in this country, I don't know if you know this, Wilf, is compulsory. You have to do it. But as you go to a ballot, you get your name checked off, and a lot of people don't use their vote correctly. And, we look at other parts of the world, and, it's easy to laugh at other parts of the world and look at the other parts of the world and go, oh, look at that, look at their leaders and whatever. But we need to make sure that we make our votes count as well, because, I mean, it's just, like I said, the world is a very weird place, and I don't know, I just try to take some positivity out of it, because there is a lot of good that comes out of, like you said, being sensitive and being self-aware, but people just seem to focus on the negative, and that's why I wanted to talk to you about this. That's why I wanted to talk about this in general, is because it's not just, assuming that everything's bad. There is a lot of good that comes out of social media. There's a lot of good that comes out of technology. There's a lot of good that comes out of being self-aware. It's just people focus on the negative, which I think this day and age, I think people do that too often. And it's, I guess, like you said, let's just hope for the best, and let's become, so in 10, 20 years, we look at things a little bit differently, and maybe the quote-unquote PC culture will not seem like it's as apparent as it is now. But, Wilf, anything you want to add before we end things up here?
No, I'm just really thankful that you let me on this first show, and hopefully it's not the season's not canceled after the first show. I could obviously, as you know, I could ramble on about this all night long. So thank you very much for having me on, and hopefully I haven't deterred too many people away from myself. But hey, that's me. Like it or learn to live with it. I don't know. It's I'm guilty of all these things too, and I think too. I think that if people are willing to say, you know what, I said this, I did this, I'm absolutely guilty of it as well. How can we get past it? I think that we can kind of become a better society and better friends to each other, because there's lots of things I wish I didn't tweet or email or say, but I did, and I gotta go past it. So, thank you for having me on, and I'm very interested to see the feedback from this discussion, and I'm interested to hear about your future episodes.
Yeah, I'm glad that this is the first show that I'm doing, because this is exactly what I want from this show. Thank you for being open and honest and just being Wilf, because that's what I love most about you. Where can people find you? What are you doing? Where's your show at? Put yourself over.
Yeah, so hate mail can go to Josh at Josh. I don't know what your handle is this week.
I don't know what it is either.
Listen, please subscribe on any podcast platform to Brainbuster Radio, where you can hear Josh talk every Friday with Kevin Carroll about wrestling and only wrestling, essentially. and listen to all the really cool wrestling podcasts. If you really like Josh and you like Omega Luke, that's okay. You don't have to listen to all 8 shows. Just, subscribe and tune into the shows that you like. And we are really happy to have you. So follow us at Brainbuster Radio on Twitter. That is where we live. And hopefully, you can join in the conversation and interact with our shows. We love to talk about wrestling.
Yeah, we all do, and Wilf's being nice. Make sure you listen to all of the shows on Brainbuster Radio, because they're all fantastic. No, listen to whatever the hell you want. But I'm very thankful of you coming on today. I'm also want to take the time, because, this is a wrestling podcast, essentially, of course, not about wrestling, but about the fans. This lovely man has taken a chance on me and Wrestling Reverb, and Kevin, of course, and has been so gracious in supporting this idea as well, because this is something that I'm just branching out and doing, and, I've got a lot in the works for this show, and for Wrestling Reverb in general, but, thank you for the support of this, Wilf, because, without support from anybody, I probably wouldn't be doing it. And the fact that you're so open and honest as well. But thank you very much, my good friend.
Yeah, dude, let's do it again, and let's talk about football or snacks or food.
Something else.
Because the food conversation is going to be 100% positive, because I am fat.
Oh, me too. I love some food. Just sign me up for some food. That's going to be... Next time you hear Wilf on Diving In, we're just going to talk about food. And we encourage you to bring a snack. That'll do it for this week on Diving In with Josh, and I hope you catch you guys next week, because we got some cool stuff. I won't let you in too much on what's going on, but we have some cool stuff lined up for you, and listen, we're going to talk about all different kinds of things. It's not always going to be about the uncomfortable stuff, like Wilf suggested. We're going to talk about food, music, video games, whatever comes our way, whatever we're going to dive in on, that's what we're going to do on this show. But until next week, we will catch you guys next time. Peace out.